Welcome back, everyone. For our last presentation before the panel, we welcome Marti Gorman, author of 17 books and publisher of 35 years, most recently at the helm of City of Light Publishing. She is well known for working with local authors, and we are very happy to have her talk about book promotion at every step of the journey. Now I'll turn this over to you, Marti. You can share your screen and start your presentation.
Thank you. We're going to do a screen share, except I'm on the wrong slide. Share. Good morning. Hello, everyone. How are we doing here? I've totally enjoyed all of the speakers. What a wonderful program. It's been a pleasure to participate actually year after year, and it's a great pleasure to participate virtually. To tell you that I kept thinking I was going to be in the library this morning. I was planning things around that, and here we are, virtual. I would like to talk a little bit about how the difference between focusing on one book to one reader versus selling many books to many buyers. And it's just a different way of looking at, at publishing. So I'm with City of Light Publishing. We're a hybrid publisher. And we do things a little bit differently. We do a very good job of replicating what the big book publishers in New York City, et cetera, do. And we like to do things well in advance. So if I can advance this, there we go. So you know how to promote your books. I'm not going to tell you how to do that. In fact, we've had several speakers today who've given very good advice on how to do that once you have a book. What I'd like to talk about is what happens behind the scenes in that ethereal realm of publishing, behind the scenes where you don't often get. So you know how to promote your book once you have one, but there are so many ways that books are promoted before you actually have a book. So we're going to take a look at a couple of those. Some of them are accessible to self-publishers, others are difficult, but you should know that this is happening. So there's one book, one buyer versus many books, many buyers. And that's a choice that you're making when you enter this realm. And another thing to keep in mind, and which you'll note, is that it really takes about 2 years to publish a book. You'll see why in just a second. So getting started. So the first thing that happens to promote a book in the world of City of Light Publishing and most publishers is that you report the deal to Publishers Marketplace. And that's a huge boon. Your book is seen by industry people. So other publishers and agents and booksellers, everybody keeps their eye on Publishers Marketplace. So by reporting the deal that that you have actually sold your book to a publishing company, the publisher reports it, then you are already getting the word out that this book exists. The next thing that we do is we report that title to the distributor. And the distributor in our case is IPG. There are two big distributors. There's Ingram and there's IPG. There are others, but those are the two main ones. Follett and Baker and Taylor, and all the others buy from these two. And when we report a title to a distributor, we assign subject categories, keywords, metadata. You need to do that for your book regardless of how you proceed. Those are really important things to get lined up from the very, very start. What subject categories, what keywords, what metadata. We also then compare, identify comparable titles. So what is the competition? What other books are out there that do what your book does? And you have to, of course, define your audience. This is all part of promotion and marketing long before you have a book in hand. So if you define your audience, you're also defining why to buy. Why would you buy who's going to buy it? Why is it going to be purchased? Next up on my to-do list on a new book that I've just signed a contract on is to assign ISBNs. That's the individual identifier, the unique identifier for that book. And that's how I will be able to refer to each format of a title hardcover, softcover, ebook, I'll be able to refer to it using the ISBN, and I will know that I will be talking about that we'll be referring to the exact same book. And the next and really important thing that needs to happen is we need at least preliminary front cover art, not back cover, but front cover. And that's when you can really start talking about a book. So Cayuga Island Kids, which is pictured here, is a very good example of all of these. When we reported Cayuga Island Kids deal to Publishers Marketplace, we had over a dozen inquiries. And actually, we ended up getting a lot more manuscripts over the transom. When we reported it to the distributor, we discovered that it needed to be reading leveled by Lexile. And that helped us do the metadata for that book. We identified some very interesting comparable titles and altered the series. This is Cayuga Island Kids is by Judy Bradbury. Many of you may know her. This is the first book in her series. This one is The Mystery of the Barking Branches and the Sunken Ship, and it's the first book in the Cayuga Island Kids series. So by identifying comparable titles, we were able to determine dimensions, page length, et cetera, et cetera. Judy defined her audience very, very well. We assigned the ISBNs to the softcover, hardcover, and e-formats. And this is the awesome front cover art. And it's almost preliminary. So that's, Cayuga Island Kids is an excellent example of how we created this promotional platform. By assigning ISBNs, you know, the book goes into books in print. Bowker produces the Bible of everything that's in print. You want your book in books in print. And so assigning an ISBN is very important. Can't change the slide. I don't know why. Let's see here. Once you do all that, you enter what I like to call the ARC era. The ARC era is a minimum of 6 months prior to the release date, and it's a critical time in the publishing of a book. The first thing I do when I have an ARC is, let me hear it, you all know what an ARC is, right? Advanced Review Copy. So as soon as we have an advanced review copy, so you not only have a front cover, but you've got an interior as well. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the title page needs to be very, very accurate, as does the verso of the title page, the copyright page. And then you've got an ARC. It can be imperfect. Don't wait for perfection. You need to get an ARC out. And the first place I send an ARC out to is the Library of Congress for cataloging and publication information. And so this advanced review copy goes to them, they catalog it, and 2 to 3 months later, I get the cataloging information that will go on the copyright page, will print in the book. That's why it's important to get it out so early. And that puts it in the system. Then the Library of Congress knows your book exists. How important is that? The next thing that happens is it goes into Edelweiss. In our case, the Edelweiss information is propagated directly from IPG, our distributor, and Edelweiss is the professional platform where acquisition librarians and bookstore buyers go to look for what they're going to purchase. My sales and marketing team with IPG actually uses snippets, they're called, from Edelweiss to push books like Chickadees and the Moon Above, for example, out into various sales channels. So they'll be promoting books like Chickadees, which has already been cataloged by the Library of Congress. It will not come out until March 1st of 2021, but it's been cataloged. It's been on Edelweiss, and the sales and marketing team knows that to not just market it into bookstores and libraries, but this book actually will also go into gift shop or specialty shop channels because it's a beautiful gift book. So Edelweiss is really important to get it into those multipliers where you're selling not one book to one person, but many books, like multiple copies of your book to multiple sellers. So imagine in the gift shop arena, Hallmark, for example, Barnes and Noble, in the bookstore arena, libraries. There's a library system with 37 branches. They could buy 37 copies of it. So we're talking about many books selling into many different units. And finally, I want to talk about NetGalley. And NetGalley, Edelweiss is for libraries and bookstores primarily, but NetGalley is where reviewers bona fide reviewers who really review books consistently and regularly go to look for books to review. And again, I have an agreement with the distributor that puts every title that I report to the distributor into NetGalley, but you can actually you have to pay for it, but you can have your book available for download to reviewers at no charge, primarily in electronic format, but also in hardcover. So that's getting the book out to influencers, to book reviewers who really spend a lot of time reviewing books and have a very big following. So NetGalley is an important place for your book to be minimum 6 months prior to release. Like Chickadees and the Moon Above. Isn't that gorgeous? Sarah Simon, local author and artist. This is the most beautiful book, I think. We're very excited about this one coming out next spring. So then what you're going to do, you haven't started talking to individuals yet. You're going to try to reach bookstores and libraries. And those involve professional review sources. So 4 to 6 months prior to official release date. And indeed, Publishers Weekly will not, they have rules, they will not publish a review of your book, no matter how fabulous it is, if they receive it less than 4 to 6 months prior to the official release date. So it's really important to have that ARC, that advanced review copy, and have it available to send out to places like Publishers Weekly, library/school library journal, it's a single unit, goes into the one it's supposed to, Forward, Bloomsbury, Hornbook, Midwest, the professional review sources, the ones that librarians, acquisition librarians read religiously to determine what goes into the collection, that bookstore buyers peruse every day to see what's hopping, what's good, what is going to be in demand, what's getting good reviews from high-level professional review sources. Free speech is my example for this one. Free speech and why you should give a damn. My favorite spring 2021 release, it will come out after the election. It's an unbelievable book, and it's already been submitted. It has its cataloging and publication information and all of the previous slides. Now it's gone into Publishers Weekly. Library Journal is looking at it. We've sent it in for the New York Times review of books. It's into Forward. All of these places have already received an advanced review copy of this book, and the ACLU is also looking at it because it's their bailiwick. And we have quotes coming from elected officials and free speech advocates, the Rutherford Institute, et cetera. So this is a good example of how far in advance we need to work. We have a full interior. It's still in indexing, but it's a great example of doing it well ahead of time, and why you need to have a book so far ahead of time. So this has been a lot of work. You've already done a lot of promotion and marketing, particularly into multipliers, into many books to many places instead of one to one. But you finally have final files. And so 6 months prior to release is when you really need final print ready files. They should be ready to upload to the printer. You don't have to upload them that minute. If you have a little more time, you can live with them and continue to perfect them. But at that 6 months, 5 to 6 months prior to release, your files should be ready to upload to your printer. And at that point, you do your ebook conversion into all 4 ebook formats. You need to be EPUB, iMobi, Kindle, and PDF. And those really need to upload immediately. The sooner you have an ebook available, be it for sale or simply for promotion, the better off you are. 5 to 6 months prior to publication is the ideal time. You can tap into so many promotional opportunities, Kobo and Prime, and there's just a multitude of opportunities if you have an ebook available. And frankly, all books in this era of COVID need to be available in ebook format as well as in print. Now, after we have final files and you've got an ebook, now we start addressing readers. We haven't even talked to readers yet. So we're going to reach readers. So 6 months to launch, there is a lot of work to do. And it can start earlier than this, but a minimum 6 months to launch is you need to claim your Goodreads author page. Goodreads is an incredibly valuable source of reaching readers. Readers who love to read are on Goodreads. You need to be an author on Goodreads. You need to have an author page. You also have an Amazon author page, and if you don't, you need to have one. You could have your own website, and you could blog about your book, and that's a very, very good idea. If you have e-commerce, you can sell your book off your website as well. This is the time when you start reaching out to individual reviewers, and you want to reach for the top, for the influencers, the ones who have the greatest number of followers, bloggers, podcasters, the people who reach individuals who want to know what to read. You also want to reach out for your back cover quotes if you haven't already, but involve them in the marketing and promotion process. And at this point, you're going to be doing your media pitches as well. So for monthlies, you know, you need to be at least 3 months out to pitch a monthly publication. For weeklies, you can do it a month and a half, 4 to 6 weeks out. And for dailies, you need to be at least a week or 2 out. And that, of course, the latter goes for television and radio as well. And the most important component, social media, right? Social media is your friend. It's your ally, it's a powerful tool, and you can talk about and tease your book prior to this 6 months to launch, but this is when it really begins. So 1 month to release. Oh, in fact, I forgot to mention. So Confessions of a Gentleman Killer is a very good example of this. Johnny Payne, an LA author, has done a fabulous job on Goodreads, and he's almost quadrupled his followers by posting there. His Amazon author page is very active. We've got a website up for him, and it's looking gorgeous, and he has all of his books on it, not just Confessions of a Gentleman Killer, which is truly a remarkably lyrical book, believe it or not. It came out on October 1 of this year. He's got lots of influencers going. We don't have back cover quotes for him. It wasn't necessary, but we have some very, very good reviews. The media pitches are going in a variety of directions, including 4 of his hometowns, which is nice. And social media has been amazingly active, with Instagram taking a major role. And the launch was a world premiere of a play of his that was done virtually around the world, actually. And we launched the book on October 15th was relaunch, and the launch was on October 16th. And so we did a play and a novel at the same time. It was a great launch. But 1 month to release, what you want to do is build up and generate demand. Monster in My Basement by area award-winning artist Heather Lynn Harris and her cohort Dave Preston, right up in Rochester, is the best example of a 1 month to release plan that I've ever seen. There was a series, what you're trying to do is build up and generate demand, of course. So you need organic social media. So you need to actually be posting, creating that conversation. Paid social media is a very good idea. 1 month prior to release. Paid social media is a good idea. Leveraging, and in that social media, what you're doing is you're leveraging your reviews and your media hits. You've already asked for them. Now you have some, now you get to post them and share with folks on social media what people are saying about your book. You have conversations with your readers. You post events, you have events, virtual now. And you want to remind bookstores and libraries that the book is going to be available. They should order now. And finally, release. We have a book. And Albright, there is no better example of a release. Mark Goldman, area author Mark Goldman, award-winning. Actually, Albright just got another award, New York City Big Book Award, about 2 weeks ago. So the release, the release of Albright about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, was a 3-day extravaganza at the Albright Knox, the Birchfield Penny, and the History Museum. It was an amazing, amazing 3-day launch back in the before times when you could still have real events. So, and that's really when your real work begins. All of this has just been lead up, and then you need to actually sell the book and utilize all your tools. So, questions? I'd love to take some, and I hope that I haven't overwhelmed.
Great, thank you, Marty. We do have some questions, which our audience members can post in the chat. But to start off, how has the pandemic affected the publishing business?
Oh my goodness. It was catastrophic for 2020 releases. There was no spring release. All the books, all 5 of the books that were scheduled for release in the spring of 2020 went on hiatus, on hold. In fact, the actual print copies got hung up in the supply chain problem, couldn't get them into the country. Um, and they had to be postponed until June. And frankly, during COVID, I found that people are consuming books like they're consuming food. They want comfort books. They want Gone with the Wind and Goodnight Moon. They're not looking for a new experience. It's been daunting for new books to release during this time. Books, people are buying books, people are reading books, but they don't seem to be listening to anything but COVID and elections. So it's hard to talk about new books. It's hard to get the word out and to get people talking about them. So I found COVID to be really catastrophic. We've gone into all virtual events. We've gone into all ebooks. And we have a dozen books coming out in the spring of 2021, which is daunting as well, because if you can't sell books in 2020, how do you pay the printer for them? So it's been a difficult time, and yet it's been a very fertile time because I'm receiving many, many, many submissions of excellent works that people have spent the COVID time working very hard on and producing some incredibly interesting work. So while it's not been good on the business side of things, it's been very good on the creative side of things.
That makes sense, and I hope 2021 is a bit better.
We all do.
Someone asks, you mentioned metadata earlier in your presentation. Could you explain what that is?
You know, metadata has a variety of definitions, but I use the broadest one. And metadata is not just author, title, ISBN, number of pages, dimensions, etc. That is technically metadata. But metadata, the most important metadata, are the keywords that you really have to determine well. The BISAC subject categories, very, very important metadata. You have to get into BISAC and see what those subject categories are and utilize BISAC, B-I-S-A-C categories. And so it's keywords, it's subject categories, and then it's all your bibliographic data. And in your description, there is metadata. So when you write the description of the book, you really need to be utilizing the words that will draw people to your book, just like you do on your website, where you need to include keywords that will allow the search engines and algorithms to recognize you. So I hope that's a reasonable explanation. There are big definitions of metadata and little definitions. I think using the larger definition of metadata is the better way to go in publishing.
And from a publisher's viewpoint, do you prefer that a literary agent be used for a memoir in particular? Is that essential?
City of Light is a hybrid publishing endeavor, and although we do use some traditional contracts, which we don't pay advances, and that's a problem for agents, and there are some books that we can publish without partnering with the author. Hybrid publishing is somewhere in between self-publishing and having an agent and a New York publisher. We do all the work of the New York publishers, but we partner with the author. We form a team. So we often share the pre-publication costs, and we share all of the marketing as well. So agents have difficulty with that paradigm. They're used to getting a percentage of an advance, for example. If we don't pay advances, how do we work with an agent? We're currently, that said, working with 2 agented works, and the agent is just fine with that. So I'm going to say that it's difficult to work with agents, but some of them are amenable to it, and then it's fun to do that because then we have a bigger team. But as a hybrid publisher, agents don't like us as much.
I think this will be our last question. Does City of Light Publishing rely on in-store sales? And if so, do you guarantee returns to entice Barnes & Noble and other bookstores to stock copies? Is that worth the effort?
Yeah, we don't rely on in-store sales, but we give our authors access to bookstore and library sales in the US, Canada, and the UK, including Australia and New Zealand. So we can reach into institutional buyers like bookstores and libraries around the world. And those are very, very important. That's a very important thing that we offer our authors. We also sell direct. We have a great website and we do direct sales. We do events. We do lots of different types of sales. But to offer that level of distribution is a real boon. And we always accept returns. You must accept returns. Not accepting returns pretty much puts you off the table. We accept returns through Lightning Source and Ingram. We accept returns through IPG. We have to accept returns, and we do withhold a small percentage of royalties to cover those returns to make certain that it all comes out in the end.
Okay, and I think we do have another question. There's so much to do before a book gets published. How can authors avoid becoming overwhelmed by all the steps in that process?
I think that not doing it all alone, but teaming up, even if it's with Barb, for example, or your initial speaker, I'm sorry, the name just went out of my head. I think that sitting all alone with a book is very, very overwhelming. Whether it's with a publisher or with some sort of group, I think that you need to plan it out and to be able to brainstorm. I think you need almost a Gantt chart. I mean, you really need to plot it out well ahead of time and know that you're dealing with a very long lead time to try and pop a book out, to have the book arrive on your desk 2 weeks before your initial, or the night before your initial release date it's a strategy for failure. It limits your ability. It only allows you to sell on Amazon, basically. And anybody can sell on Amazon, and your book should be on Amazon. But when you do it alone without going through larger channels with distribution, you're basically limiting your sales to your own website, Amazon, and the bookstores that you can walk to and the libraries you can talk to. So it's limiting for your books. Some books are perfectly amenable for that strategy, but books that merit a larger audience, the way to do it is through full-scale distribution.
That makes sense. Thank you so much, Marti. That's all the time we have for questions. And this concludes our presentations for today, and we will take a break until 11:25 when we will start the panel discussion, which will be featuring Noah Falk, Kim Krug, Alyssa Palumbo, and Lou Rera. We'll see you in a few minutes.